What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode
She stared me down over there.
Welcome to this episode of the B3 Podcast. I'm your host, Brett. The artist formerly known as Heavy C is not here. Got multiple injuries, Matt, and Tanner the Head. We got our show partners, Elite Nutrition. Check them out at elitenutritionomaha.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off. Go to the store in Omaha or Lincoln. Yell B3.
Get a free shaker.
And Cybertruck rides with Tanner.
Yeah.
That actually don't involve a vehicle at all, so you figure it out.
Cybertruck.
Yeah. We also have Rosewood Block. They make the best cutting boards and barbecue. Check them out at rosewoodblock.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off there as well. We have a special guest with us today. She is a research scientist. We'll just call her the doc. She's also a power lifter, a rotisserie chicken aficionado.
Oh.
And she has information, stuff that we've loosely talked about, the Ozempics, the GLP-1s, and whatever else. So I know that Tanner has a plethora of questions he's just been dying to ask.
Yeah, I don't think you need a better introduction than that.
Yeah.
But just in case anybody figures out my real name, anything I say today is my own thoughts, views, and opinions. I'll try to speak to the science as best I can, and these views do not represent that of my organization. That's also not being disclosed.
There you go.
I feel
That was
like we
very
should,
official. That was good.
I think we
I
should
should have rehearsed it, right?
No, it sounded
I think
rehearsed.
it covers everything.
I feel like
good.
we need to do that when we hang around Tanner. These do not represent our views or opinions. These are strictly
These are all
Tanner's.
fake.
Yeah.
But no, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, so thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we appreciate doing it because I think it's been a widely abused drug or supplement or whatever you want to call it. It's a drug. I mean, it's a drug, I guess, right? I mean,
Oh, it's a drug.
yeah.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I think there's some where the risk to benefit ratio is worth it, and there's some people who are like, I just want to lose 5 pounds, but I'm lazy as fuck, so I'm gonna do this instead. And I know you sent me a paper kind of about some of the compounding issues.
Yep, that's also an issue.
Yeah. So you want to go into that a little bit? Because I know some people get the compounds because are they more easier to get because you don't have to have a prescription for them then? Is that what that comes out to be? Or is it?
Yes and no. So the whole background around compounding and compounded products. So there are certain pharmacies that are, yes, regulated by the FDA, some that are regulated by the state. So these pharmacies may or may not be audited by certain regulatory bodies, but they are allowed to make drugs if they are on the FDA shortage list. So if we look back to when Wegovy got approved, which Wegovy is the same thing as Ozempic, technically same compound, it's all semaglutide. But because Wegovy was approved, people started using Ozempic, which is approved for type 2 diabetes, off-label to treat obesity. Boom, went into shortage. Whether it was the product or the vehicle of delivery, it ends up on the shortage list. That opens the door for compounding pharmacies to say, hey, we can start making this. But what people don't truly know is that the recipe available through USP, which is another organization that has all of the recipes for drugs, it's not available. So how they're doing this, we don't really know. Are they marketing it as if it is the FDA-approved product? A lot of places are. But there's no real way to prove that it is. So there's a lot of loopholes and workarounds for these types of things. So might it be the actual product? We don't know. Are they compounding it with other types of vehicles for delivery, like insulin, vitamin B12, and others? Yes. Are they dosing the same as the FDA-approved product? Maybe. We don't know. There's just a lot of loopholes that they're trying to get through. So that is a big issue because these may actually be counterfeit products. Whereas compounding pharmacies can also safely compound other products if that recipe is available. So there's just so many unknowns that we don't know if they're safe.
When you're talking about compounding pharmacies, is that or compounding facilities? I think is that are you referencing a Kohl's, an actual legitimate compound pharmacy, or I go online and I want researchpeptides.com?
Technically all of the above. There might be, I don't know enough on the topic to really speak to if there's other legitimate compounding pharmacies tied to university medical centers who have access to this. I don't know. But Novo Nordisk, who is the company that makes semaglutide, they want this put on the difficult to compound list because it simply is difficult to compound. The recipe is not available. But yeah, it's in reference to pretty much all of these compounding pharmacies, to my knowledge, at least.
When you say it's hard to compound, that's if I'm not adding two different kind of semaglutides together or two different peptides, you're just a single peptide is in there. You're saying like the creation of that individual peptide is hard to compound. Or we don't.
Whatever the semaglutide is made of,
Yeah.
whatever it's conjugated to, I honestly don't know the science of it.
Yeah.
But I know it's a very long chain of amino acids, the peptide, polypeptide, and the vehicle in which it's like delivered within and produced. I don't know how it like essentially makes it more stable with a longer half-life, because the dosing frequency is once weekly. Some people are stretching this off label to longer to try and make the medication last longer simply due to cost. And maybe it's just as effective in those types of terms too, because the half-life is so long. But yeah, it's apparently very difficult to compound. I don't know that. I've never made drugs. I don't intend to. So
Liz.
is it more of the like the semaglutide you see more of, or do you think it's the delivery system they're kind of counterfeiting, or is it the whole thing?
that I don't fully know. I know
Okay.
that there's different like vehicles of delivery that they're using, that they're changing. The dosing might not be the same. I don't know if they're still really making like semaglutide acetate and sodium salt and these other types of formulations of it, where we don't know, okay, what extent can this cross the blood-brain barrier? What extent, is the half-life going to be more or less? Dosing, is it the same? Is it not? Depending on how long it's going to last in the body.
So some of those compounding pharmacies are probably doing it correct, and some of them are not.
I
Is
won't
that-
directly speak to that.
Yeah, okay.
Just because the recipe is not available.
Yeah.
That's the
So I guess
fact.
so you wouldn't know if they were doing it right, or there's really no way to know if you're doing it right.
And I don't know if anybody would really want to check and say, oh, go to
Right.
these people. They have,
Now,
they're
and-
doing it right.
And
Reverse
from the
engineering
science end
it.
of it, how do you check that? Is there like some
Right, there's
kind
got to
of
be like a gold standard where you can have something.
Well, I guess I don't even. How do you check it? Do you break it down? I don't know how they break that down.
There's some sort of reverse engineering that I'm sure you could do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the name of the methodology, but there's probably a way you can figure it out. They're trying to figure out how to make the best potential copy of this. But if they don't know it's the exact compound, they shouldn't be marketing it as if it is the FDA-approved product.
Yeah.
Also good.
There was one of the news channels. It wasn't a local channel, but they did something where they bought semaglutides from, I think, 10 or 12 different online places. Some were like legitimate FDA approved, like a Kohl's kind of place. They bought from there, and they bought from like researchpeptides.com or whatever it was and stuff. And so they bought those and they listed them. And of the, I think it was 12 that they got, because it was like 6 of them came back with the right peptide in it and the right semaglutide in it and the right dosing. And at least 2 or 3 of them came back with like nothing in it. Like it didn't have any of the actual peptide in it. It was just stuff and bacteriostatic water. Like it was just nothing there. And then the others had some of it in there, but the dosing was high. Like one of them I think was like 2.5 times what it dosed on the bottle, and the other 2 were well under. So it was kind of all over. But
So if you did a dose, it was actually 2.5 times the amount it was supposed to be.
yeah. So if you're
Okay.
supposed to do just 1 milligram, not
Just for
if that's
people
the
who
right
might not
dose, but
understand,
yeah. So if you're supposed to do 1 milligram per 1 milliliter, like you would draw out your 1 ml syringe, but it would actually have 2.5 times the dosing on there. So but from a semaglutide standpoint, it's not just going to like totally crash your system and all this bad stuff. And so that could have the inverse effect of like taking you too far, but on the same point, like you could get underdosed, right? So you're supposed to be taking 1 and you get 0.5 and you're like, well, this shit doesn't fucking work. And then you up it and then you up it and then you buy it from somewhere else. And now all of a sudden you do have the right dose. And now you go from being at the right dose to now 50% more because you were used to an underdosed or an under supplied product.
Why don't they just make the recipe available?
That'd be a question for the companies themselves. But it also deals with like their patent system. So,
You
however,
can't. Because you can only patent this. You can't patent semaglutide because it's a short chain amino acid, right?
to my knowledge, it's patented.
I thought you can only patent delivery systems.
Let's ask the internet.
Maybe it's, I don't know. But I know that there is a patent. I
Well,
know,
Yeah, sorry.
no, it's okay. And I don't know how that's like changed
what I was
with
looking
different vehicles of delivery or the delivery systems themselves, or even the indications that come in line with that. So I know that liraglutide, which is one of the earlier generation glucagon, like or the GLP-1s, that just went generic like a few months ago. So that's been around for many years.
So to my knowledge, so when something comes off, okay, if it was patentable, then they would all be being sued. right? Because when something comes off the patent list, when the patent expires, it's like 30 years or something crazy. That's when you get your generics. So there's generic drugs for everything.
Right.
I just don't think you can patent a peptide. I think that they're working on delivery systems and dosings and things like that, and they're patenting those things. Go ahead, Matt.
The AI interface for Google says that yes, semaglutide is patented. Novo Nordisk owns the patents for Ozempic and Wegovy.
So what he's saying is you're wrong, Tanner.
And it might
I'm
have
just saying you're not right. I don't know if you're wrong.
it might have to deal with like how they prolong that half-life. Like that's
Right.
probably the aspect of that patent that matters. Because again, peptides, there'd be a lot more companies getting into peptides if they would be able to patent that direct molecule. But they
Right.
alter it just enough to
Right.
I
But
guess
you
that's the
can't patent
workaround.
something that naturally occurs in nature.
Right. If we could, we'd all be really
Right, but it's
Yeah.
but that exact variant for drug, like maybe maybe you can like change one thing and so you still get 97.
Well, and the delivery system is what would create the half-life, right?
technically speaking, yeah. I mean, there might be something with
Because of how it
peptide.
breaks down in your. I mean,
Right.
it's like an aspirin. How it breaks down.
Yeah.
The coating on it changes how it breaks down.
Right.
For your delivery system.
Well, I mean, if you look at regular pharmaceuticals, like you patent the drug, and then when they go to generic, you still get the active ingredient, right? The bioefficiency is the same for whatever that active compound is. You get it labeled differently, and you put different stuff on it. So
Well-
the delivery is what changes it.
So like epinephrine cannot be epinephrine is past patent, but EpiPen, the delivery system, is patentable.
Yes.
Right? Like Synthroid Synthroid has like a very small variance, but levothyroxine has like up to 10% variance. So that's the generic. You know, so I know there's differences between them.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, so I'm saying, so there's the two different. You have the Wegovy and the Ozempic.
Ozempic, yep.
Now, if that same company owns a patent, did they buy the access to the patent, or is that made by the same company? I haven't looked that far into those two. Matt.
Jamie.
Google says that yes, epinephrine is patented. It was granted to Par Pharmaceutical Inc. in 2015. The auto-injector application was filed by Florida Atlantic University in 2005.
Because epinephrine itself is very cheap.
Yes, as far as the cost goes, the epinephrine, the drug
pen-
itself, the epinephrine is
Yeah.
super cheap. So like on the EMS side, if I buy the vial of epinephrine that I then have to mix with some kind of substance, some sterile water, something saline to like
To suspend
inject-
it.
to suspend it. Well, to like dilute it out because like the vial is highly concentrated.
Oh, okay.
If I just pull it straight out of that bottle and give it to you, not going to help you at all. But if I mix it, then I can dilute it to be effective. That stuff's like $20 a vial.
Right.
The auto injectors that have the same potency of epinephrine in there, like the 0.3 milligrams per milliliter dosage, those things cost $357.
Yeah.
So it's the mechanism, the delivery mechanism for the epinephrine that they just charge you out the ass for because they own the patent on that.
The pen.
The drug itself is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But it's patented by someone else, though.
Yeah, so the drug itself is patented. So now I don't know. So if it was in 2015, what are those like generally 5-year patents at first, and you get like a 2 to 3 year expiration. So maybe it comes out afterwards, but like there's got to be a lot of different variants of epinephrine because you can get it from a lot of different companies. Like at least where we order it from, like we can get it through a lot of different companies in vial form. The auto injectors, the actual brand name EpiPen is what costs a shitload of money.
Well, and even getting past like the patent, obviously there's a risk. There's a risk no matter what you're going to do with any drug. There's always a risk. I mean, that's why they have the side effects of, you're going to have oily discharge and shit yourself, or you're going to have what?
Good old Orlistat.
That's Taco
Yeah.
Bell.
Yep.
Wasn't that Ally? Oily discharge, bring a change of clothes. But even with like the actual Ozempic and Wegovy obviously have side effects that you've seen, or obviously your research has shown.
Yeah, I mean that we're aware of. Granted, I don't practice medicine, so I don't physically.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, experience that.
She's a PhD doc.
Yeah, I'm the fake kind.
Not the
but-
MD
The
doc.
kind that
No.
doesn't help people.
Right, exactly. I just kind of sit on my butt all day and hang out. So.
Well, Matt denies kids with cancer insurance, so it's fine.
Whoa, not anymore. I don't actually work for an insurance company. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I still don't. Yeah, I still say no, but indirectly.
the nature of any drug, like there's always a discussion that needs to be had with your healthcare professional or HCP. The benefits, the risks, what we know, what we don't know, the expense, and it's always a shared decision-making approach with the physician. But when you think about, okay, do these benefits outweigh the risks? Is this going to help you short-term, long-term?
Bitch.
Really making that decision is very important. But when we think about a new drug or compound that's available on the market, there's a lot of unknowns with long-term use. And those are things that it's like, okay, I guess we'll find out, as we get there. They conduct these longer-term post-marketing trials to find these things out. But a lot of the side effects that people experience from these GLP-1s and the dual GIP GLP-1, that's the mechanism of how this is supposed to work.
Yeah. Now, what do you, with anything that you've done, which we're not going to talk about where you work, obviously, but do you think that the risk to benefit ratio is there?
That's not for
Now, I have a friend I've talked to. She's a pharmacist,
It's a certain like,
and she said she's seen like a lot of great with bariatric where the risk to benefit. And I know some people who are like, I look at them as people at the gym, or you're training somebody, and they weigh like 400 pounds, and you're like, well, is the risk to benefit ratio worth it? Because there are those side effects of like gastroparesis or whatever. You can have like stomach paralyzation. And I don't think people always understand too that doesn't just, it's not just it targets body fat. I mean, it goes after everything.
I mean, yeah, there's GLP-1 receptors really located throughout the body. So you have them in your pancreas, your alpha and beta cells, which control your insulin and your glucagon, so your glucose uptake and your release. There's receptors in your GI tract, your cardiovascular system, your brain, neural pathways. So it acts through many mechanisms, mainly by regulating your pancreatic hormones, gut motility, satiety. Like there's actually neural pathways that are thought to be impacted by GLP-1s. So it acts through many mechanisms. But
I do have a question. Has there been any studies on you talk about neural pathways, the dopamine response? Is it, so I heard, I heard that it was like lowering the dopamine response. So that's what's canceling the food noise, right? It quiets food noise. So it's lowering the dopamine response. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's I don't know. And then I saw something by the companies, Ozempic and something else, that said that these drugs were lowering alcoholism, like treating alcoholism and drug abuse by like 50% or something crazy.
Because you're not getting the dopamine rush.
So I'm wondering, is it doing something to the dopamine response? I don't know if there's been any studies on it. Searching the internet's freaking stupid. Just like Matt tried to tell me I was wrong, and epinephrine was founded in 1904, and maybe the EpiPen or
It's
a
not
certain
the
type of
EpiPen.
epinephrine, but epinephrine has definitely been generic.
Pharmaceutical compositions that contain epinephrine were patented. So
Yeah.
Epinephrine was founded in
Technically, yes.
1904.
epinephrine
This is what Tanner likes to do. Is
I mean, I'm going to forget the question.
itself is
so-
not patented.
Tanner, stay on
Dopamine.
Anyways,
the actual application of it is.
Yeah, I mean, searching the internet's not fun, but searching my brain probably isn't going to give you the outcome you want either.
Okay.
I don't really know, but I know that there are reports like, hey, alcoholism. There was an observational cohort study, which is when a bunch of physicians, they basically got together and they wanted to see how does this impact our patients. Let's look at their alcohol intake, which is mainly self-reported anyways. But they're seeing decreases in that. But people are also just not having the desire for food either. And that's, one of the mechanisms it acts through. We don't really know exactly what happens with the signaling. Dopamine, plays into everything. It probably plays into this.
Because there was also some talk that it was creating almost like a depression, but then all of those things have been challenged, or it's going back and forth. It seems like maybe in the European Union and in some European countries it's moving forward a little bit more. In the U.S., it's kind of been
What's moving forward?
Some challenging to these drugs
Gotcha.
creating depression.
Gotcha. So the EU is finding more evidence.
Not necessarily in the EU, but there's some like potential, like there's no lawsuit. There have been lawsuits that have been dismissed, but it seems like it's moving forward. Like there may be some more talk in the European Union than here.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of whispers about that earlier last year. I know that there was a publication in, I think it was JAMA back in January, that kind of spoke to that. And they said, no, there's no increase in suicidality. And it's like, cool, that's great. It's good that people are, feeling good, whatever it might be. But at the same time, at the individual, like patient level, whoever's taking this, whether it's for diabetes or obesity, if they were getting a lot of comfort from food, a lot of comfort from the social interactions that they had while having food, maybe they're not having that anymore. Of course, that's going to impact the person.
Yeah.
So it's like thinking on that personalized level, like personalized medicine, studies don't reflect what happens truly at that single person level because everybody's an individual.
Right.
So it reminds me of like it kind of reminds me of like depression, right? You have, if you have depression, you can take an SSRI, it will change your biochemistry and like you won't have that mood, but you're also not dealing, like you're treating a symptom, you're not treating the effect, right? So if you're taking Ozempic, like yes, you're going to drop body weight, whether it's good or bad weight, you're going to lose weight. But whatever was causing you, whatever behavior or biological impact was causing you to gain that weight, you're not doing anything about that. So now that's like you just squeeze the balloon, right? It's got to come out somewhere. So now that's going to morph to somewhere else in your life. So it's not going to, you're not solving the root.
I know that all these drugs can be useful tools. They really can be. I have clients and people that I know that have used them super effectively, but they took care of everything else. They took care of food, they took care of exercise, they took care of other things, and it was just something. Once again, it is a diabetic med. It helps process carbs. If someone's having some insulin resistance or whatever, I'm sure it's helping with that. But like it can be a tool, but other people just sit there and like dose up because I think the doctor or whoever, the clinic or whoever, they just keep increasing their dose and they just don't do anything and they just look like a freaking.
That's what I was saying. I think
they look like Skeletor, like it's like.
And I think that's where you look at like your risk to benefit ratio is like, I don't know. I know obviously the weight loss purpose of it. I don't, and I'm sure it's a very obvious answer that I've just never looked at because I hear the weight loss side of it. But as far as the diabetes side. Is it the weight loss to get down the diabetes, or why are they using it on the diabetes side?
Yeah, I mean, it was initially researched for diabetes, and that deals with like the earlier generation GLP-1s that aren't quite as effective for weight loss as what we're seeing now, the second generations or whatever they're calling them. But it reduces your A1C and essentially your blood glucose because it causes glucose-dependent insulin secretion. So there's a lot of medications that people take for diabetes. And it just, boom, insulin secretion. They might go into hypoglycemia, meaning that they have low blood sugars. But when you have this glucose-dependent type of mechanism, when you take in food, that cascade occurs and they release insulin at the right time.
Yeah.
So that it ultimately reduces your blood sugar levels.
So that's no matter your weight. That's not an obesity thing. That's just if you're a 120-pound male with diabetes. It doesn't matter. It's just helping regulate the insulin secretion at the right time.
Right. And then they're like, whoa, okay, people are losing weight on this. We should look at this more. And then, more compounds are being developed. There's so many in the pipeline with so many companies right now. So many different ones. It's incredible. They're incredible drugs. They do great things for great people. But people who don't need them are very much seeking them out for these benefits.
Right. And that's what I was going like with Tanner's thing is you get somebody who's like, well, I want to lose 10 pounds, but I don't like to work out. Right. Well, and we've talked about in the past, your body is designed to survive.
It's its only job.
Its only job is to live and survive. No. And if you take these GLP-1s, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, you take the GLP-1s, obviously it discourages eating. You're eating minimal calories.
Yeah, it acts through a mechanism to make you...
But what is the mechanism? Like, what is it?
It's got to be something in the brain, some kind of receptor, right?
That has to be something with the signal from the stomach to the brain. Say the satiation, right? The leptin. Like, is it a leptin response? Like, is it slowing the ghrelin response? Like,
probably all of the above.
Okay.
Like, I don't fully know, but I know that it does impact hormone signaling related to satiety and hunger. It impacts gut motility. You're digesting slower. Makes you nauseated. But usually that happens when you're titrating the dose when you're first starting. So
I had a client of mine who she would every time we'd work out, she'd throw up. And it didn't have to be a hard workout. When she first started taking it, she would get sick. Mm-hmm. But now I don't know if she's getting it from a compound or whatever. But where my thing was going with that is the survivability. You're not, and that's why we were talking about, it doesn't just go after body fat. If you're not eating, your body is built to survive. The most nutrient dense source in your body is muscle.
Oh no, you're getting into one of my favorite topics about these.
It'll go into muscle to
Yeah.
start eating the muscle to survive, and then you can lose bone density. I mean, you can lose all kinds
Yeah.
of.
Like
well, they were
Peter-
showing like
So it's like not a joke. Like if
Yeah.
you're like you're not an overweight person, and by overweight I mean like massively large person. You know what I mean? Like I don't like the BMI, so I'm not going to use that as a
Well,
reference.
you said
But
like 50% body fat plus, right?
yeah.
But I think
Yeah,
we all
if you're 5'10" and you weigh 400 pounds, you should probably, your risk to benefit is worth it to take this.
right.
But for the average person, I mean, it's just going to make you not eat, which is going to hinder your workouts and your production and results from your workouts. But then it's going to, your body needs to eat. It's like, oh, we worked out. I need to feed to survive because I'm burning more calories. So it's going to start breaking down muscle,
turning it into amino acids,
doing what it needs to do to survive. And now what's your take on it? You kind of have a...
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's more actively being looked at now. There was a post-marketing study or a long-term follow-up to liraglutide, which is one of the earlier drugs, not as effective, being used for obesity, and this was in like Sweden or Denmark or something like that. But they looked at basically in conjunction with lifestyle and exercise. After people stopped the medication, whoever was doing exercise while taking the medication did not lose as much muscle. They maintained a lot more of the weight loss, and they just followed them for a year afterwards. So they're showing that people are losing muscle, yes, because if you're going to have any sort of reduction in that caloric intake, you're in that deficit, you're going to lose mass. Whether that's fat or muscle, it's going to be both to some extent always. But people are losing muscle mass, and it's not proving great. A lot of like clinical experiences that I've been told about, not good. People are losing mobility. These older folks who are taking this, they're very much under muscled. Their metabolism is also slowing. It's like you're going to plateau no matter what intervention you're going to use.
Yeah.
People are being recommended to be screened for malnutrition now.
Well, yeah, because if you don't eat, in general, even if you're not on these pills, if you don't eat, your metabolism will slow down to conserve whatever energy you can have.
Well, like Peter Attia mentioned a number of studies where it's somewhere it's like if you follow people who do a normal diet, whether they're trained or untrained or whatever, you're like the goal is, I think he cited somewhere like 25% to 40% of your weight loss is going to be lean mass. Everything else should be fat, right? It's like a good target to maintain. But as you look at
How much lean mass?
like 25% was kind of what the target. So if you're losing like that's like a health, that's like a decent amount.
That make me cry a little bit.
That's terrible.
Right. So that could be bad, right. But it's if you look at the groups that are on the semaglutides, they're upwards of 60 to 75% lean mass loss.
So the problem is it takes about, once again, if it's a tool, right? If it's a tool in your tool belt, I don't think it's necessarily bad, right? If you're doing everything else, it takes about a week to burn a pound of fat, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you're losing a pound to a pound and a half a week, you're probably, because you're going to lose some water with that too, as you lose weight. Right. So like if you're doing that and this is the thing that puts you, because you're working out, you're eating, like some of my clients that are doing this, all of my clients are doing this, they eat on a schedule. Like you eat whether you're hungry or not. Like this is your calories that you have to maintain. And we scan so I can see their skeletal muscle loss, if there is any. And I've had plenty of clients who either maintained or even gained muscle while using the semaglutide because they're eating the right amount of food.
And your protein intake has to be
I shoot their protein intake way up.
has to be way high for it.
And a lot of these people will go like low carb. Like I'm like, you're taking a freaking drug that depends on carbs. Like eat your damn carbs. Like it's fine. Like this is what we're doing. Right. So like if it's a tool, that's one thing. The problem is, as I think a lot of people who prescribe it, I don't think they should be prescribing it. Like, I don't think they're qualified to. And they just freaking up dose because they want them to be happy. So they're happy if they just lose pounds, right? But then they just, like I said, they all look like freaking melted candles.
Well, yeah, that's where the number on the scale doesn't matter. And I have clients and people, but what have you seen as far as like, so I have a client who's on it and she's like, well, I'd like to lose like another 10. I'm like, okay, well, like, what's your plan after that? Because she knows how to follow a nutrition plan, diet, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? But then she's like, well, I don't know if I'll ever get off it. So what have you seen as far as like long term? Now I get it's an early stage of this, but what do you think long term?
Yeah, I mean, just early last year in Nature, there were 2 comment pieces published. One of them saying, "Oh, the forever drug. Everybody will be taking this. Everybody will be fine with it." The next week, people want to stop taking these medications. Published in Nature as a comment, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna have this, headbutting and everything, and there's I don't want to spit a percentage that's incorrect, but there's many people who start taking semaglutide and then end up not taking it after about 12 weeks due to poor tolerance. Granted, there's other drugs that have better tolerance that are, yes, approved and some in the pipeline, but a lot of people don't want to take their medications. People give their dogs their medications at a better,
way higher rate.
Exactly.
Way
So
higher
these
rate.
people, like, whether it's side effects, cost, they don't want to be medicated. That's all understood. But it's like, long term, when you're on the medication, it's such a good opportunity, and this is me not being a clinician, to change your habits, to try and think about where can I make
treat the
things
cause,
better,
not just the
to
symptom.
to set myself up for success. Okay, where can I make these changes with my dietary habits? Where can I make these changes within my eating patterns, my physical activity? Thinking about other things that can, satisfy me, like, from like a religious practice perhaps, or some sort of meditation. Try to fill these things so that when you may want to come off or feel like you should, or you're ready, whatever that may be, you have these other habits that you've built up during this time that you were able to become, in a much healthier state. Because even when you do have a lot of weight to lose, most of the time losing any weight is an okay thing, because they just simply need to lose the additional mass, hopefully mainly adipose tissue at that point.
And rather, if it's a jump start, like I said, if you're a bigger person, it's a good jump start for you.
It's beautiful, yeah.
But I think weaning yourself off. And now, do you know much about it? Like, is it cold turkey stop, or is it a wean off, or does it, if you cold turkey, does it throw you back? You know what I mean? Does it?
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, that I don't really know, but there's a lot of additional studies. Some of them are published, but they recommend continuing these medications perhaps beyond your weight loss goals. Not just because it's going to sustain the loss that you've already had, but there's many cardiovascular outcome benefits that you're reducing major adverse cardiovascular events. You're reducing death due to heart attacks, stroke, all of these things.
Now, is this for larger diabetic people, or this like, I'm just here to lose 10 pounds people?
Oh, they don't do research work on those people.
So
No,
this is just
it's
Like
people who
the
meet
clinically obese.
right the prescribing criteria, which is the BMI 30 plus. It's people with type 2 diabetes, and it's people who have a BMI of 27 or greater and at least one cardiometabolic risk factor. So there's certain people who are eligible to receive these medications. But as far as like other more healthy populations looking just for that vanity weight loss, I don't know if there's anything published or if there ever truly will be.
So-
there are no studies on just off-label use of it. Or not that.
Yeah, I mean like early phase
Okay.
trials, like for liver outcomes, obstructive sleep apnea. I think that was actually a phase 3 trial, but like there's other trials for other indications. But like off-label use,
Hopefully
there's
like
not.
vanity
There's-
weight loss. Like there's not.
yeah, I'm sure that there's stuff on the black market, but it wouldn't be like peer-reviewed, published kind of stuff.
I mean, the only thing I have is anecdotal evidence, and
Right.
it only goes so far because it's like, to your point, like asking about like weaning off for the vanity aspect. I would say that you can wean off and be successful, because I have had clients who have done it, but it's like they'll take a shot and they'll do like every other week instead of every week. And I don't even know if it's doing anything. I think it's the mental. I think at this point in time, it's a mental, oh, I can go 2 weeks. Oh, I can go 3 weeks, even though it's not even, because the half, what is it, 5 days?
It's technically a week, but I think it's technically much longer than that. Because some people will stretch that dosing off-label too to like prolong,
The
how much-
half-life's longer than a
Right.
week?
I think so.
Wow.
Like I'm not certain
Yeah.
if it's like longer than a week and still has the same effect, but it would still be present. I don't know exactly how
So I
long.
guess if you're going longer than a week, if your half-life is shorter than a week and you're stretching it to a week, that'd be a big up and down in impact.
Yeah. Okay, I just have a question. Is there anything in your research that you found like that's like super like interesting, either good or bad or both? Like, did you see something like, oh, I didn't expect this good thing, or I didn't expect this like bad thing?
Yeah.
It could be for the weight loss or diabetic control or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do the research directly, but there's a lot of different trials that are just looking at these different outcomes. So, like, just as an example, fatty liver, big problem in people who have obesity, have diabetes, other cardiometabolic comorbidities. There's no GLP-1 receptors in the liver. But we're seeing results for fatty liver, where they're reducing liver fat. They're reducing steatosis or inflammation.
And what's the average weight of these people?
It would be within the threshold.
The over 30, whatever.
Yeah, typically
BMI.
within 27 plus for BMI.
So this is like not whatever. I know there's a medical term, like non-alcohol induced fatty liver, right?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
leave me out of
NAFLD or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which
Yeah.
is now termed differently for metabolic associated steatotic liver disease. So it's the same, technically the same thing. It just means you have a
I was
metabolic
kinda
risk
close.
factor. It's yeah, you got it. You actually nailed
I
it
mean,
right on
either
the
way
head.
to qualify.
But there's other quote unquote what people are calling side effects from these, and people are like, oh, we need to look into this. We need to investigate this, such as hair loss. People are losing hair. If you think about it, is it because of the drug or is it because they're malnourished?
Right.
And it's thinking of it from that perspective, because there's companies that have certain things in their pipeline that either are or resemble a myostatin inhibitor to protect lean mass.
That's what's funny. The myostatin inhibitor is
That's scary.
that's been someone like companies have been trying to replicate forever because
count
those
me in.
was it the Belgian blue cattle?
Oh,
Yeah.
They don't have a myostatin inhibitor and they get super jacked.
yeah, but the problem is a heart is a muscle.
Well, yes.
That's it. And you got to think at what point, because you're taking something to lose mass, you're going to take something that will help preserve and gain mass. At what point is that, going to be
That-
doing this?
my-
It's like a
That-
Red Bull vodka.
It is like a red. It is like a Red Bull. Vodka.
It's like the up and the down. And sometimes
Yeah.
we got to
Like
meet
you
in the middle at
get
some
so,
point.
get so
But-
drunk you can't pass out.
And it's like our Western medicine's very good at taking care of these types of conditions. But it's like, at what point do we stop targeting side effects specifically and use these, again, as Tanner said, as tools
Yeah.
where we can really try to implement these type of habitual changes to see if it will actually impact that person's quality of life, their outcomes, their functional ability.
I have seen a lot of negative and I've seen a lot of positive. I was very, very against them at first. Like I just thought it was just, but I've seen so much positive that comes from them that when people do it correctly.
They change people's lives, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
the
are you
context
talking
of it.
positives of someone who's morbidly obese? Or are you talking about
Someone who's 20, 30 pounds, like not like someone who's just like, in my experience, it's usually women that are getting perimenopausal hormone changes, things like that. Things have changed, and they've been working out, they've been eating right, and they've just been putting on weight. And this has helped them get back, but they're maintaining muscle mass, and they're in a better spot. So that may be pure vanity, but there's a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things that are okay for pure vanity, right? Like, but they feel better, and I can see that. But then I've also seen people who, like, you see the pictures posted, like, yeah, they're not eating. They're not eating at all.
Well,
I have a client that comes in. I'm like, you need to eat.
well, some of those people, I think that they would take meth if they knew they'd keep their teeth and not pick their face. You know what I mean? It's like, but it'll make me lose weight.
Yeah. If it wasn't
And I can
so
get a lot
addictive.
done.
People will do anything
what-
to lose
That's
weight.
what I'm saying. Like,
Except eat
oh,
less.
Anything.
meth makes me skinny, but I lose my teeth and pick at my face. But if I didn't,
Yeah, but they'll do everything to lose weight except for work out and eat right.
Now, obviously, I assume you're probably on the same page as most people. The biggest beneficiaries are obviously your large bariatric people, like patients-wise. You know what I mean? Which obviously there's some kind of mental thing there.
There's something going on, but it's like
You have
a
to
great
try to get that
jumpstart.
big. You know what I mean? Like some of those people.
Well, here's the thing. The why I think it works for them is that once you do, like maybe you got that big, right? It's hard to now lose it because it's hard to move. It's hard to tie your shoes. It's hard to put on your pants. Like it's hard to do everything. So then it's one of those things where if you can get them a jump start, even if they're not doing a ton and they can lose 20, 30 pounds, and then now they can at least walk up and down the block. You know what I mean? You can start moving them because they lose a little bit of weight. And I saw some crazy number, and I'm not going to quit, but it's like for every pound you like weigh extra, like the amount of pressure it puts on your knee is like 10 times. Is it 3x?
So it's 3x for walking is 3x, jumping is 9x.
Yeah, it's like something crazy. The amount of
jumping
pressure
they're probably not doing.
Yeah,
But even walking is 3 times your body weight. Impact on it.
Because you have your ground force reaction.
Yeah.
So think about your ankle.
So if you can lower the weight to get them moving, then like we're taking the right steps. So yes, I think it takes. I'm not going to try and get in the head of someone who weighs 500 or 600 pounds. Like I'm not going to do it. But like something happened, right? But if they want to fix it, like you're at the point where it's fucking hard. Like everything's hard. Life is hard.
Well, and what do you think about the people who beat semaglutides? You know what I mean? Who will take them and they're still fat? I don't understand how that works because you hear stories.
To your point, they may not be getting real shit.
Oh, yeah. I guess it would depend on if you're getting the actual product or not.
Right.
And some people do not respond to these medications.
Oh, that's awesome. Or are they just eating past it? Like, you know, like those I beat anorexia shirts? Like,
What the fuck?
but no, I mean, you see these people who are like, they're on it. Like, I know someone who their significant other is on it and they've lost like no weight. But the person I know has lost a tremendous amount of weight. So how are you? Are you eating past it? Or are you just basically like, I don't care if my receptors say I'm not hungry, I'm eating? I don't understand how you beat it.
It depends on the person. Some people do not respond to these medications. Some people just...
So now to those people, do they try a different version? Or are they all the same, you think? Or is it just that just the whole idea that semaglutide doesn't work for them?
No, there's other drugs available. So there's not a ton of guidance around like exactly what algorithm of like what you should use, maybe first, second combination. Like there's not a ton of data supporting that or really being recommended. There's a lot of work in progress and there's some out there, of course. But there's with semaglutide, you typically get maybe 10 to 15% weight loss. And people with type 2 diabetes typically lose a little bit less. Is what I've, or what I'm pretty sure is in the trials with tirzepatide, which is a little bit more of a potent dual GLP-1 receptor agonist. People are losing 22-25% of their weight.
Yeah.
And
Now,
it's
can
more
the average person
well-tolerated.
get that, or is that a highly prescribed one? That
No,
tirzepatide, is that what you call it?
that's a compounded one. Right?
No, it's an FDA-approved drug from Eli Lilly.
But they're doing compounds on those too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They're doing compounds on.
But that's what I'm
that
saying.
aren't FDA approved.
Can
too.
the average Joe get that, or is that like if you're like that has to be prescribed, like hardcore, like you have to be like an extreme diabetic to get that or something?
No, it's the same prescription criteria,
Oh.
same prescribing information.
25% is a fucking lot.
And
That's the one that a lot of people use it for weight loss. Tirzepatide, right?
oh yeah, it's approved for type 2 diabetes and obesity at this point. But Eli Lilly just came out with a press release about a week ago for a trial called SURMOUNT-5, where they did a literal head-to-head comparison of semaglutide and tirzepatide, and they're showing that tirzepatide has more weight, like officially has much more weight loss compared to semaglutide. Like it's more efficacious from that perspective. But there's compounding pharmacies making a drug called retatrutide, which is not yet FDA approved, and they're still dishing it out and selling it, and that's triple agonist. There's other compounds in the pipeline. Or that's either a triple agonist. There's another one with another company that might be a triple agonist. One's dual, one's triple, so don't come after me on that one. But there's more effective drugs in the pipeline. And maybe people will respond to that with an additional mechanism in conjunction with that. Or in combination with another medication, too.
So the crazy thing about it is that part of me is like, hey, I have pharmaceutical company issues. I don't really like any of them, so I'm like, I like these compounding pharmacies, but I like the idea of them, but I don't want them to be corrupt or bad. You know what I mean? Like how is there a way for everyone to coexist? Is there a way for big pharma and compounding pharmacies to coexist and make sure that patients aren't the ones being punished by either paying way too fucking much for a drug or not being able to get quality drugs? There has to be some happy medium in between that we can all get to. It's the amount of money for this. They're talking like a $10 billion a year market or something. Like
more.
Is it more?
Yeah, significantly more.
Yeah, this is a huge market where everyone can make money. Like, is there a way that we can make sure that compounding pharmacies are doing right by the patient? Because at the end of the day, it's about the patient, and that the patient's not being robbed by big pharma holding all these things like EpiPens, where I think is fucking disgusting. $365 EpiPens are disgusting. So
Yeah, I
is
wish I
there a
had an
way?
answer.
Okay.
Well, in your line, and it's kind of off the rails, which most of ours always kind of go. In your research and what you've done over time, since even like COVID, has people's view of FDA approval changed? Do you know what I mean? Because the COVID vaccines and stuff like that getting approved, and has it lost its luster to be like, oh, this is FDA approved?
What'd I do?
Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like the
Talk about
CDC
FDA
lost
vaccines.
a substantial amount of credibility during COVID.
Oh.
And I know that the FDA people also have lost in this. I'm talking about not research, but just even the average American citizen has lost credibility in the FDA.
Yeah, I mean, the
Now,
media.
do you see it in your research stuff you've looked at? Like,
The easy answer, no. But I mean, when you think about how media portrays things, how people can interpret things,
Sure.
how people trust things from their friends, how they don't, like people's perception was definitely changed from that. Whether or not people kind of come back to center, if they stay on extremes, who knows? But it's to me, it's easy to say if you don't know something and to provide the best guidance that you have instead of saying this is the absolute answer, we have to do this, and when you don't truly know.
sure.
But when you have a big issue, it's good to do something, and you want to do the right thing, and it might not always pan out that way. But
Well,
to me, it's okay saying that you don't know.
Well, the sad thing to me is that there's so many good researchers out there, and there's so much good research, right? And then there's this corrupt level of money at some point in time. And I just wish, like my wish is that we just got all the information and we got to make our decisions. That's just like there's a ton of good research. I've seen research from all over the place, and then because of money, it gets pushed to the side, right? And that's what that's where I think people are at, is that they don't
And
know.
I do understand certain things take time for trials to run their course, and you know what I mean. I get
Except
anyway, but I think you're going to see things like we could do the same podcast in 10 years, and your research might be completely different
job.
because we've seen the long terms.
Right.
And that's the hard part to an extent. Like, do I fault the FDA for everything? No, I think the FDA has probably been backed into a corner a few times on some things, but I think they've also
Well, the
jumped,
FDA
they've also jumped the gun on a few things too.
the
I mean, I
FDA
think it's
is
such a mixed.
55%.
Everybody screws up.
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag of things.
The FDA, well, the FDA is just highly funded by pharmaceutical companies, which has that creates some issues, right? But also, it's okay to say that you were wrong, right? And that's where I don't think that they don't come out and say, "Hey, we messed up."
Yeah, just an admission.
Like,
Of hey, sorry, we botched that. Like, we did the best we
here's the-
could with the information we had.
Yeah, here's the information we had. This is what we did. This is what we thought, and it ended up not being right. And I think that gives them more credibility, and it gives the American people more credibility.
Like even with the COVID vaccines, if you go to that, if they would have said,
You're just
hey,
trying to get
this is what we
whole
got.
episode banned. I coughed.
but even if they would have came out and said, hey, this is like, based on what we have right now, this is what we think is going to be the best treatment for this. It's kind of the Wild West. Whether you want to take it or not, it's up to you. This is what we think is going to be the best. We obviously didn't get the regular, what's their normal trial? It's a 3-year, what's their, for vaccines? It's like normal, like a so many month trial or whatever it is, but like,
It's usually years, but yeah.
yeah, but put it like, hey, this is the Wild West out here. This is what we got. But like where you said, just even admitting like, hey, we kind of messed that up.
Or we don't know.
Or we don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of credibility.
We're doing the
with
best with what we got.
transparency.
Yeah, we're
Like
doing
I'm
the-
literally sitting here saying I don't know on things because I don't know, and I'm
that's what-
okay with that. I'm
yeah.
okay not knowing everything. If
Yeah.
I did, I'd probably not be here right now.
Yeah.
I would be running the FDA or something. Who
I think
knows?
pulling some of that back to the impact of Ozempic and some of these things. Like if you're a provider, there are people want a diagnosis, right? They don't want like, oh, you don't have a problem. You just need to eat less, do more, whatever. Like I think it's really, really prevalent or apparent on the mental health side, right? Like sometimes it's just like you just have a bad behavior. You have to do something there's nothing to diagnose, right? So, but if you're coming in to see your primary, like they're like, oh yeah, no, you're one of those people who just can't lose weight. So I'm going to give you this Ozempic and yeah, now you can lose weight and we can move on. So whether there's a financial incentive to the individual, to the provider to give some of these drugs to help down that, rather than having the conversation of, you just have to lose more weight. Like here's some things to do. Here's some lifestyle changes to do, right? You can approach that. the Ozempic stuff can be used as a crutch to kind of like launch that and say, hey, here's a jump start. Let's do that. But in addition, here's some other things that you have to do to really capitalize on that and solidify the change, so you don't have to take this drug and realize that you have so much more ownership and control over your lifestyle.
And there are people who do both. There are people who do it the right way.
There 100% are.
And there are providers who prescribe it the right way.
Yeah.
I just think it's such, once again, to my point, it's such a money pit. Like there's so much money involved that there's a lot of people who aren't doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I'm going to keep dosing you because if you keep losing weight, you keep coming back and spending this extra money with me.
But it's also
right? So
even if you don't look at the kickback or money in the pharmacy stand, for me to come in and talk to you and have a 20-minute conversation with you about lifestyle changes, even if you're super receptive, versus me having a 5-minute conversation of like, oh yeah, Tanner, you're fat. Here's Ozempic. Move on. That's a 5-minute conversation. Now I can have 4 5-minute conversations with people versus one 20-minute conversation. So me as the provider, and I don't think that most providers function that way. A lot of places are fee for service. So the more people I can see, the more I can do. Now, if I give you Ozempic and you're like, oh shit, I'm losing weight, this is great, you're more likely to come back, and there's a whole snowball effect of it. So, but there's much more dynamic than just like the pharmacy kickbacks and like the money that comes into that from the pharmacy side.
no, I'm just saying, it's just the industry. Like a weight loss industry.
Except for insurance companies, we're fine. Leave us out.
Whatever.
We're good.
So anyway, to kind of wrap all this up,
Insurance companies are fine.
I don't know. That one guy got whacked, so I think people are upset about that. So
No, it was bad luck. And that was UHC. That's different. Everyone knows they're evil.
So anyway, to wrap this all up, there's a lot of pros and cons, like with any drug. Do you think the pros outweigh the cons for the average person trying to lose 20 pounds versus like your, like obviously your plus 30 BMI, diabetics?
Yeah, for
like
the
that?
average person, absolutely not. I mean, it's not shown to be super effective. It's not shown to be safe. Like, there's a reason they're not looking at it, because these people do not have a chronic
So you
disease
think you
state.
think the cons
Right,
outweigh the
They
pros?
do not have a chronic disease, right? But people who do have a chronic disease of diabetes, obesity, whatever it may be, all these new indications coming down the line, absolutely. Like, these are wonderful drugs. They are literally changing people's lives. And one would just hope that they are implemented in the right way, that people are being safe, that these are being used in conjunction with lifestyle, physical activity, all of that stuff that's going to ultimately help them down the line, whether they want to continue taking the medication, whether they want to come off. Those healthcare professionals, it's them to work on that individualized, shared decision-making approach to decide the best thing for that patient. But time and money are of essence with a lot of things. But if you can get these people healthier faster, they're more likely to have a better quality of life. But hopefully it's done the right way.
So your professional opinion is the risk to benefit for the average person is not that great. But if you're a plus 30,
Yeah,
If you have a
meet
chronic
prescribing
disease.
criteria and you have
chronic disease,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
go for it. But and that's kind of what we've said too. The risk to benefit ratio of, I just want to lose 10 to 20 pounds. I'm not saying you're
Yeah.
right or wrong. I'm just saying sometimes you got to look at the risk to benefit ratio. Is it worth it?
Yeah, and we'll like, not to set this off again, but we'll see more outcomes as the bodybuilding community is really taking to this to control cravings and vanity weight loss. Like, we'll see a lot more. But
Yeah.
Well, bodybuilders do everything in excess.
exactly. So I
We
mean,
should be able
You want
to
to see the
we'll
extreme?
learn.
Just
So. Yeah, if you want to see,
Yeah.
see
Well,
the
we've always said those
far end.
top lifters and top bodybuilders, more drugs. We didn't say what drugs.
Yeah.
We just said
Yeah.
more drugs.
Ozempic and steroids. What can go wrong?
So you guys got anything else for the doc, the research community?
No, like I said, I love reading. Well, I read abstracts because I'm not smart enough to read the whole damn paper. But
Fuck yeah, absolutely.
But there's research
It's
out
like
there.
Cliff Notes, but
I guess my thing, and I assume at this point you agree, is just do your research.
Yeah, make an informed decision, but you need to know everything
And just
around
because
that
you're
decision.
just because
to
you're
the
losing
best of
weight,
your ability.
I think at the end, just because you're losing weight doesn't mean it's gonna end up that way. I think you could have some serious side effects.
yeah, and
Down
like
the road.
from my anecdotal evidence, like I think it can be done for vanity reason in a way that is safer, in a way that's not.
Yes, keep your. I mean,
Right? Like if you
use it
keep
as
your,
a learning experience. Get your use it as a learning experience to learn your diet, your protein intake, your things like that, your workouts. And then as we talked about, like the taper off, and then you've learned how to lose, you know what I mean? To maintain that weight loss.
And I have seen people who have maintained it afterwards. It wasn't a bounce back effect. It's a bounce back effect for people who did not do anything while they were doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
But for people who changed their lifestyle, it was not. Once again, anecdotal. I'm only dealing with individuals. I'm not dealing with
Well,
mass
that's why
people.
we thought it'd be good to have her on, because we're just dummies and she actually has the research
Yeah, she's smart.
and has done it and read the papers and probably understood the entire paper.
A
Except
little
for
more than the
abstract.
abstract.
Yeah.
I can't read a whole paper.
Yeah.
I listen to people who have read the abstract.
Yeah.
I don't read the abstract. I'm like, that's
Yeah. All that
words.
space in Tanner's head, and there's really
More
just
than 3
nothing there.
syllables. No.
Just bouts of 250 words or less.
Yeah. It's just like a retarded hamster. Like, stuck.
Exactly.
Or less.
Yeah. It's just a retarded hamster stuck on a wheel.
Running backwards.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you
In
coming
the
on.
right direction, though.
Thanks.
We appreciate you coming on. It was good information. Like I said, we're not saying you're right or wrong, whatever you're doing out there. Just do the right research to it. And if you are doing the vanity end of it, like learn how your body works so you can maintain it afterwards. This isn't like a lifetime drug,
No,
in my opinion. I assume you're kind of,
for vanity.
for someone who doesn't have a
most, it
chronic
should
disease,
be.
for vanity, it's probably not a lifetime drug.
No, not for vanity.
Yeah.
No.
You're going to lose a lot more than just body fat.
Yeah.
Friends.
And once again, I get I get the vanity part of it. I'm not even saying
I'm
that's
not
bad.
saying it's wrong.
we lift not all of us.
It's like, well, that's not
Matt
all of us.
Matt's hurt himself multiple times trying to be vain.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
I
anyway,
don't even do semaglutides
Yeah.
yet.
But just we're not experts. That's why we wanted to have her on here. She's more of an expert than we are.
And all medical advice should come from your healthcare professional.
Yes, your physician.
Or
And,
Tanner.
and you know what? I hope you know your physician well enough to know that they're not just prescribing you this for monetary kickbacks.
I don't think they're prescribing it for monetary kickbacks. Like that's not what I don't
No,
think.
I know. I'm just saying in general, because a lot of people, I think that they just think their doctors
I just
are
think
getting
it's
these kickbacks.
I just think it's the easiest. Like it's
Yeah.
the easiest way. It's
Yeah.
just it's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Me trying to tell you, hey, I need you to get 10,000 steps a day and eat X amount of protein and blah 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 blah. That's a lot harder than hey, take the shot once a week.
Yeah.
So it's a path of least resistance. So.
Yeah. So do your research. Talk with your doctor if it's something you're really interested in. Don't just jump in, and especially don't just jump into a compounding, because obviously, like she said, that there's no.
Oh, anecdotally on that, I know there's a difference because I've had clients who've gotten it from a different compounding pharmacy because of wherever they're going through, and like side effects, color, everything's way different. Like especially side effects, way different. So I know
It's like buying steroids from a bathtub chemist versus your TRT doctor. They're different.
I need you to quit bagging on bathtub chemists here. But,
Yeah, I mean, hold on a second.
What I'm saying is there is a difference. There is a
but
difference.
there is a difference. I will
Yeah.
say like the side effects, the aggressiveness of it, the some of them like are putting B12 in there, and I think that's for some other things. But like
Yeah.
there's other stuff, and
Yeah.
you, like there is a difference. Like that's what I was very curious because I know they're not all the same, but I couldn't explain why.
And they still want to help people. They still want to offer a cheaper, more accessible compound, but let's do it the right way and not market it as if it's the actual product, because that's
Right.
Yeah.
not,
And remember,
that's
you
like
only
counterfeit. So
You only have one body, so like treat
Yeah.
it like as best you can. You can fuck it up in the weight room, but when you're putting things in your body that you can't control what's happening once it's in there, just do your research. Talk to your doctors. Make informed decisions,
right, yeah.
and try to be a little less shitty every day.
Try anything as possible.
Like, subscribe, share, follow. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you later.